Hello and welcome back to Modelling Misadventures. Now in the last video we got to this stage of the construction of Thunderbird 3 and now it's time to carry on with some additional external details. Now first of all, this model has to have some numbers and letters applied to it, and the numbers go around the bottom of the rocket, around the engines and the base, and the lettering goes along the top of the rocket here. Now in order to make the letters, I'm going to cut them out of vinyl using my Cricut machine. But the first thing was to try and find out what font the numbers and letters should be. Now I managed to come across a website here called eagletransporter.com. And on this website there's a forum which actually addresses the issue of the fonts in Gerry Anderson vehicles. And so you can see on these pictures that there are 3 different fonts used for the numbers and lettering on Thunderbird 3. So you can see here that the large number 3 at the base of the rocket is suggested to be done in a font called Futura Bold. For the letters at the top, a font called Grotesque MT Condensed is recommended, but I've also seen elsewhere online that something called Grotesque Condensed 9 is a possibility. And for the black number 3 on the engines, the font that was suggested is called Mechanic. But this was then discussed in the forum and shown to be a mistake, and the correct font for that number 3 is something called Compactor. So what I've done here is drawn a number 3 in the Cricut Design Space software, and I've converted it to the Futura Bold font. Now this font wasn't available in the Cricut Design Space, so I had to download that and then import it into the software. So now I'm going to press Make It, and you can see that it's now imported that number 3 onto the cutting mat. Now I've adjusted the size so that it's the correct height, and we press Continue. Now I need 3 of these, so I'm going to increase this to 3. I'm just repositioning them and spreading them out a little bit, and then we continue. Now it's asking me to choose what material we're going to use, and I'm going to use vinyl, and that is now ready to go. So we now have to go to the Cricut machine and press start. So here's the Cricut cutting machine and it's ready to go. And we're going to fasten some white vinyl onto this cutting mat. And now we're ready to go. Just going to load the cutting mat. And when it's calibrated itself, we'll just press the start button. And the start button's flashing, so here we go. And that's done. So out comes the vinyl mat. So there are the 3 number 3s that have been cut, and they're now ready to be applied. Now there's a bit of a problem when it comes to applying these number 3s at the bottom of the rocket as to which orientation they should go in. Now let's look at some examples. This is a little toy Thunderbird 3, and you can see that the number 3 at the bottom is on its back, and if we turn it sideways, the next one is on its back, and the third one is on its back also. This is another toy Thunderbird 3, and again all 3 of the number 3s are lying on their back. And on this model here, we've got one number 3 lying on its back and one number 3 lying on its front. and the third bay is empty. Now there's clearly some confusion about this, and the confusion comes about because the original models that were used to make Thunderbirds had these number threes placed in different orientations on different models. And we can see that in these photographs from the actual Thunderbird shows. Now here's a still from one of the actual shows, and you can see very clearly on this model that this number 3 is lying on its back and this number 3 is lying on its back, and we can't see what the third one was like. This is also the orientation of the number 3 when the rocket is shown flying to the left of the screen. But in this model, when the rocket is flying to the right of the screen, the number 3 is in a different orientation, and you can see in this case, if the rocket was stood up, it would be lying on its front. However, very occasionally in Thunderbirds, they use a model which is stood in the launch bay, and it appears to have a number 3 that is orientated vertically. And this is another view where there is a vertical number 3 shown on the side. So it's hard to know exactly what to do, but I've made a decision. When you watch Thunderbirds and look at all the launch sequences and you see the Thunderbird 3 going to the space station and then coming back into land, the number 3s are always either on their back or on their front. And you never see the vertical number 3 when the rocket is in flight. So I am going to put 2 of the number 3s on their back and 1 of the number 3s on their front. And this actually goes against some of the modelling convention, which is to have an example of each on the rocket. So 1 vertical, 1 on its back, 1 on its front. But I'm favouring having 2 on their back and 1 on the front. So that's what I'm going to do. Now to put these stickers on, we need to use this stuff called transfer tape. I'm just putting the transfer tape on over that number 3, rubbing it down to make sure it's stuck properly. And then when we peel it off, hopefully the number 3 will come with it. So there's our number 3 on the transfer tape. And lastly, we're going to put it on. Right, I've got that level, and now I just need to smooth it off and pull the transfer tape off. And that's the first one done. Now it's time for the black ones. And there you can see a test one and the 3 new ones next to it. That's the black number 3 looking pretty good. Now before I do the lettering, I realised I'd forgot to put this black stripe on the top. So I've had to mask the whole thing off, and I'm going to spray this. Well, after all this time, it looks like I've ended up with a witch. So these are the letters printed out. You can see I've taken one set out already, and the other ones are ready to come off. And I've got it on the transfer tape. I think that looks pretty good. Well, it was really good fun making those stickers and putting them on, and the model is looking really nice. So here you can see with the stickers and numbers on, looking really good. So that's it for today's video. In the next video, we're actually going to finish the model off. But for now, I'll say goodbye, and I'll see you next time on Modelling Misadventures.